Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Welcome to season 2.
Season 2!
Season 2 episode. So
We got a new set, even from episode 1. It's a little different.
it is different from episode
It
1
is.
because we had this beautiful backdrop here, Script Babies.
We bought 1,000 more curtains,
We did.
and it feels a bit like we're in a theater.
It does.
A theater.
It feels very professional.
It's very professional. It's
Very
it's bringing what it needs to bring.
It
you know
is.
what I mean? Oh my god!
I'm gonna need
Oh my god. Ew! It went from cute to ick.
Have you ever seen Publicity? The Nick Kroll things?
Only because you and Trevor told us about
Talking
it.
like that always reminds me of that.
It's so
like they get
funny. Because isn't that old? It's like an old.
Yeah, it was from the Kroll show. It was like a bit from the Kroll show, but it was like the best bit.
But I like some clips are on TikTok, right?
Oh,
I feel like
yeah.
That's how I saw it. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, obsessed.
Perfection.
Obsessed. Here we are.
We're here.
We're Script Daddy. We're your host, Carly.
And I'm Colin. And here at Script Daddy, we read scripts, watch the movies, and discuss the difference between a script and screen.
I feel like I've heard you say it 1,000 times, and yet if a gun was to my head, I would still be like, we read scripts, and then we kind of sometimes, I don't know what that is. I've always been like that. It's like if you give me a short little thing
and you're
to
an
say,
actor.
I know. I'm telling you.
You are a professional actress.
The shorter the line, the more I panic. Like, truly. It's weird. It's weird. It's a me problem. So that's why I always look at you with a little bit of like, I have a bead of sweat forming like, he's got this. Because you do got it. Yeah. I maybe wouldn't.
Got it like that.
So we got it like
week?
that. My week was good. Got a lot of writing done.
Period.
Yes.
Nice.
Got some writing done. Oh, I don't know why I have to tell you this, but guess what Scott got concert tickets to? I've been meaning to tell you this.
Go Gabba Gabba?
No. It's at the Greek, my absolute fave.
Okay.
But the contrast of what I'm about to say might be jarring for you. Goo Goo Dolls and Dashboard Confessional.
Fuck. Wow.
And they were like cheap. That's why we're essentially, because Scott was like, oh my God. Because we both miss live music so much. Like since Ziggy, we haven't like been to something.
Fun concert.
And he's like, oh my God, babe, look what just came up. And then we both kind of looked at each other like, oh, the nostalgia of it all?
The millennial of it all. We simply must honor our culture.
The goo goo goo.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
mm-hmm.
So I don't know why I feel like I had to tell you that, but that's been a win this week that we're going to go do that.
Goo Goo Dolls sing the I don't want the world to see me
because I don't think that they understand. Well, everything's meant to be broken. I just want you to know who I am. Yes, they did. They did.
I love that song.
Slide. All these songs are 3 a.m. 3 a.m. I must be lonely. And what's weird is like,
I can't hear to be glad with all I'm down, and I ain't gonna run away, and I believe it. Anyway,
what's weird is like when that came out, I remember I was like obsessed with it, and I was like, I relate to this so hard, and now I'm like, what the fuck were you relating to?
They didn't sing Drops of Jupiter. That was Train.
No,
right?
that was Train. Yep. But like, so my mom, Scott and I were telling my mom that we're going, and she's like, oh, like those don't ring a bell. I'm like, Mom, you've heard Goo Goo Dolls. Yes. So I play like one of the songs. She's like, oh yeah, I've heard this. And I was like, Dashboard, you've heard. She's like, I don't know. And then she really like legit, we did like Vindicated. We did like all the cliches.
Oh my God, you're going to hear Vindicated live.
Vindicated. Well, if he doesn't play Vindicated, I will leave.
When I was a freshman in high school when that song came out, I felt like speaking my soul.
Like
mind
you've been vindicated
I think I learned the word vindicated from that song.
No, and then actually same. Actually same.
I think it was on the Spider-Man 1 soundtrack or Spider-Man 2 soundtrack, but I just remember like listening to that song as a freshman.
Yes.
Being like,
I am sorry.
Life is so hard.
No, literally, I think I also learned the definition of vindicated from that song. But then I was like,
So good.
duh, don't you know what vindicated means? Ish.
Yeah.
So anyway, good week. Got to write. Gonna go see some nostalgias. So, no complaints.
Love.
How about you, my love?
It was good. I'm completely blanking on what my week was.
It happens.
All I remember is that I got food poisoning last weekend, and I'm still here alive to tell the truth.
You are. I was a bit, and you scared the absolute crapola out of me.
I did.
You did. But I'm not going to make this about me. I'm going to let you take this one.
Oh yeah.
But you did scare me.
Yeah, I was
He went quiet. He said,
Carly,
I don't
my red
feel
receipts
right.
Were on either.
You were like, you literally used the wording like, I feel weird. And I knew that Sev wasn't home, which if Sev had been home, I literally would have been like, he's fine. Yeah. But I knew you were home alone and you were like, I feel weird. And you were like, yeah, like, I don't know. I got like, you were like, I felt really anxious and then I took a shower and then I almost passed out and then I threw up and I was like.
I legit almost passed out. I lost my hearing, almost completely lost my sight. I was on the floor of the bathroom. Like I took my phone and I unlocked it in this stupor because I was like, if I pass out right now and I'm vomiting, I need to make sure I'm on my stomach. I need to make sure I can tell Siri to call 911.
Smart thoughts.
And then I vomited and then I was okay enough to take some nausea medication and go to sleep.
And not let me know that you were alive. So Carly got a little nervous. Yeah. And then what's really sweet about my husband, Scott, is the next morning, I still had not heard from him. And my intuition was telling me like he's sleeping, like he's probably sick or he's got food poisoning. But then it hit like 10 and you don't normally sleep till 10. It's like true. Sometimes you do. But again, I was like, but he's not feeling well. But then I started getting a little ee-oo. And so I said, Scott, and Scott was like, okay, he's probably okay. And then he was like, I mean, I could drive over there and knock on the door. I'm like, no, because then we're going to look like psychopaths. But then I did go like,
you wouldn't have.
Maybe.
I woke up and I was like, oh, shit.
Then you called me and all was
well. I was like, shit. I didn't
I was just so glad that you were okay.
I literally didn't have the energy in that moment to even type out a reply.
No, and I
didn't know my red receipts were on.
Your red receipts are always on.
I know. I didn't know that because on my main settings, my red receipts are off.
Oh.
And they were on for like 3 people. You, Sev, and my boss. And I was like, I love you guys, but having red receipts on is just too invasive for me.
Well, because to be fair, that was so funny that you said that was part of it. Because I was like, they were red until they weren't red. Like it was like delivered, which I was like, which means he's not read it. Yeah. Anyway, point is, you are alive. You got through it, but that was scary.
Yeah.
And you thought it was from like a food you like.
I think it was from a breakfast burrito, which is betrayal in the highest. But
10 out of 10 betrayal.
Yeah, it is. But other than that, my week was good. I have not written in a bit, and it's annoying me because I just know this rewrite is going to be a bit of a beast. But I'm hyping it up too much in my head now.
I was just going to say,
so I need to bring it back down. I need to Rick Rubin that shit. I need to go for the section that's presenting the most charm and just work on that section, and then we could literally do an entire episode on Rick Rubin and his book. What now? I'm blanking on it. The art of the
creative act. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're not. Listen, this literally could be its own episode.
The audiobook,
but
Script Daddies immediately.
We cannot recommend
Incroyable.
This book enough. It is. I will say, I don't think it's for everyone in the sense that I think people write differently. But if you're a person who
it's not only for writing; it's for just general creative process.
That's such a good
specification.
It's
for creatives in general.
But I think what I mean is more so like. I do think most creatives are wired in a way where they would get something out of this book. But I will say, like, I have worked with some writers who I think are maybe don't like as easily derive inspiration from things in the way that like he kind of really amplify. Like for me, it is literally like crack. Everything he's saying, I'm like, absolutely, I can get inspiration from the ant walking on the sidewalk while I am standing with my son. You know what I mean? Like that's actually real for me. But I can see how for some people it's like that's not their thing. But in general, it is truly, truly, truly a profound book for creativity.
Oh my God, yeah.
I listen to it like every couple days. But I do feel like you're in a good, I hadn't written for a little while specifically on this screenplay. And at first it was just because like I needed a little bit of a break. And then it started to turn into, I'm not feeling the big, gorgeous, romantic inspiration. And then I said, fuck that, Carly. You know better than that. You teach better than that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And then I sat down and gorgeous, gorgeous things came flowing out. And then all of a sudden the inspiration started, all the stuff. So just take it off the pedestal. Take it off the pedestal.
It's honestly the end of it that is, because I rushed the ending in the first draft just because I wanted it to be done because I've been working on it for so long. But like, honestly, the first 45 pages, I know all the changes I want to make. So I need to just go in and do that.
Yeah.
And anyway, but there is another important update from the week that was really great is that we went viral, Script Babies.
Viral.
We did.
Don't look at us different. We're still the same people. We're still the
famous
same.
now. But don't ask for a picture without a release.
Without an NDA, baby.
But
it was pretty fun.
People are loving our Death Becomes Her episode, and I can't blame them.
I can't blame them because it's an iconic movie. I know two people that I actually know who'd not seen it, who went and watched it because of it, and they were like, "This movie." I'm like, "Yeah, girl." Like,
Sev literally goes, "I really want to watch Death Becomes Her," and I've tried to get him to watch this movie at least 2 times over the years, and it just didn't work out. But he was like, "Your guys' podcast is making me want to watch the movies you do," and that we've heard this from multiple people.
It's true. And what's really crazy, what's really cool about it is I had some people hit me up who are listening even if they haven't seen the movie. Mainly writers though, because I feel like they're still mining something from it. But then a lot of people who have hit us up saying, "Now I'm gonna go watch the movie," which to me I'm like, nothing makes me happier.
Sexy, gorgeous, beautiful.
Sexy, gorgeous, beautiful. Mm-hmm. But we've been, I mean, you and I talk about this all the time, but like we both are so stoked because the feedback that we've been getting just like lights our hearts up. Like it's just been so cool.
Because we're doing what we enjoy and people are enjoying it too. And it's very cool and validating and fun. So thank you for listening, Script Babies. We love you.
Yeah, thanks, Script Babies.
Like,
we love you.
Go and follow and rate us and give us a review on the podcast platform that you're listening on, because that really, really helps.
And we promise not to ask for that every single 5 seconds of the day, but here and there, we're going to just be like, hey, we got a cool thing going. You want to go over there and press a little something? Give us a little zhuzh, little love, little beep boop. Share your favorite anecdote. Should we get into it?
I think we better. Me too.
Fucking excited for this episode. We are doing Bridesmaids.
Yes, Lord.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh her God.
Oh her God.
Mm-hmm.
Her story.
Yes, literally her story made right in our.
I can never say her story without sounding crazy. Her story. All right, let's get into the beginning. Okay. Title: Bridesmaids 2011, girl.
Written in 2009.
When I told Scott, I thought it was 2013, like by memory. And then when I went back to put the stats, I was like, is that a joke, 2011? Because I would have been like, maybe 6 years ago, 7 years.
22.
Insane.
It is insane.
Logline. Also, if you need a logline, but you know what? No judgment. There's no judgment here. But anyway. Competition between the maid of honor and a bridesmaid over who is the bride's best friend threatens to upend the life of an out-of-work pastry chef. I can't imagine that was like the truly working logline. Yeah. But again, I just take what's on IMDb.
Not the most intriguing logline, really but it is. It's does the not essential do the movie justice, strokes of the, yeah.
At all. Starring the Kristen Wiig.
Yes, God.
The Maya Rudolph.
Oh, yes.
The Rose Byrne.
She's so good.
And and listen, that's all that's listed on IMDb, but I cannot not mention
this
Melissa
is an
McCarthy.
Ensemble movie,
exactly.
baby.
But I think because everyone else at that point was not quite as like, but still, I'm like, Melissa McCarthy, I'm going to say this woman's name wrong, Wendy McClendon Covey. She is brilliant.
She's the one from Reno 911, right?
And the Goldbergs, yeah.
Oh, God, yes. She
incredible.
Is one of the most brilliant comedians.
Oh my God.
Love her.
She's incredible. And then Ellie Kemper. Like, it's truly star-studded and incredible. Some of the
like pine needles in my face like sunshine. Ellie Kemper in this movie, and when she looks at me, she goes, "Excuse me, sir, can I have a glass of alcohol?" Like,
I literally was like,
perfect.
Again, I was shook if that only 3 of them were listed because I'm like, they're all stars.
I get
and
why
Chris
those
O'Dowd.
3...
And you know what? Chris O'Freakin
truly
Dowd.
He's so lovable in this character.
An absolutely perfect cast. Like,
I hope he's a nice
cast.
Guy because he seems like he's just the sweetest little sweetheart.
My theory is that he has to be, which is based on nothing other than...
I can't hear anything otherwise.
You know that, like, Puffin Rock... That was a strange noise that I just heard. I think that was construction next door. Anyway, Puffin Rock is a staple in our home, which is a children's show about puffins. And he is the narrator of the show.
He has a great voice.
And Scott and I have fallen deeper in love with him from this. So it was fun to now watch Bridesmaids like all these years later because now I hear his voice like daily.
Oh my God, that's funny.
And honestly, what he adds to the show is like literally Scott and I said today, we're like, this show would not be what it is without him narrating it. He's almost like the voice of God in it, where it's like, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's the cutest show ever. It's an older show. It's not even new. I thought it was new, and I'm sad that it's not because there won't be any new episodes. But all that being said, I have a whole new love and respect for him. And my working theory is that you wouldn't be the narrator on a kid's show about puffins if you were a turd.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping he's
logic.
as wonderful as he seems like he is.
I hope so too. I'm just going to choose to believe
I'm going to choose to decide that Chris O'Dowd is a stunning human.
I think so too. It just seems like he would be.
The director, Paul Feig, writers, Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo. Why can't I get Mumolo. They also wrote Barb Star.
Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar.
Yeah,
God, I love that movie. I love that. That movie was so divisive.
It really was. Scott and I, you guys loved that movie.
Is Annie the other? Is she Star in Barb and Star?
Yep, she's the one on the plane in this too. That's going. We're gonna go down.
I always thought that was
night.
Marissa Jarrett Winokur.
That's
her in that role. Girl.
Wait, now you're making me question it. Wait.
I had a dream. I had a dream that the plane was going down. You were in it.
Now I feel like I have to. It's one of my favorite lines in the whole thing.
It is so brilliant. That whole sequence is.
Yep.
Oh my God.
She's beautiful.
Her and so Script Babies, the version of the script that we read is where she's the only credited writer on it. Kristen Wiig hadn't come on to co-write yet, and her comedy dialogue is incredible.
And I'm so glad you said this because we do want to mention this draft that we are diving into. Originally, the draft that we looked at was what we have realized we're pretty positive was the post-production script where they.
But however.
What?
Well, could finish your sentence and then I'll.
So we're not positive, but there is a script available that is to a T, verbatim, exactly what's in the film, which makes me think it is a post-production script because in some of the trivia, they do talk about quite a bit of improv in a way that makes it go like, how could that be the final draft before shooting? Because it is to a T the same thing as the movie.
It's true. It is to a T, like literally to a T.
Literally to a T.
So, yeah. Sorry, finish your
So we were reading that and we were like, this might be a post-production version of this. So then you did a little looking and you found a much earlier draft. We don't know exactly, other than Kristen Wiig hadn't been.
Oh yeah, it was written in 2008.
Oh sorry,
2009.
2009.
It's the 2009 draft. So we read this one draft that's free. So if Script Babies, if you Google Bridesmaids screenplay PDF, the PDF that you'll find for free that's the most widely circulated one is the one that we initially read. And like Carly said, we're pretty sure it's might be a post-production draft for like voiceover and stuff like that they send around. And then I went on Scriptfly and they had two different options. One was from 2011, one was from 2009. We didn't know which. I was scared that if we bought one, it turned out to be the one we already read, whatever. I bought both. We read like an OG working draft from the writer. I don't know how Scriptfly got it because there's still like little production notes in the script and stuff too. It's crazy early. And then this other one that I bought looks to be like the exact same one that you can find for free online. However, the title page is completely different and it has the producers at top. And so it feels like an actual final draft. But it is like word for word the one that we read. So I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
I just don't know. But there's so many odd things about the initial one that we read that we'll get into it because I decided I'm gonna have some of my notes from that one too, because we now have seen the progression of this from an early draft to a draft that obviously was locked in and either they shot directly from it or it's whatever. But
we thought it would be interesting to actually use this draft that's an earlier draft because there's so much to mine from it in the sense that like the final product of this film is so iconic, is so incredible. It is Judd Apatow's highest grossing film. Isn't that insane? I mean, obviously he didn't write it, but like that he produced.
Yeah, wow.
And so to me, it felt like how could we not take an opportunity to use an earlier draft that's out there and available and discuss the changes that were made from there to get to this final product. Like, to me, I was like, it's so juicy and gorgeous. So to be fair, what we're mainly diving into script wise is an earlier script, but I think it's going to be like very fruitful because it's really interesting to see the changes that were made.
Because it's so different.
It's very different.
It's so different.
But then there's other things that are not different that I think is also worth kind of figuring out.
The broad strokes are kind of there, but anyway.
Yeah. So the budget was $32.5 million.
Oh my God. Okay.
That was more than I thought.
Yeah. Actually, it's a pretty kind of standard kind of budget for that. But what was the gross?
The gross was $306.4 million worldwide.
Shit.
Yeah, dude.
It makes sense. That movie was a fucking juggernaut. It's so huge.
Huge.
And it deserves every bit of it. It's a movie it's so perfect.
That like every time I watch it, it's just as good. It does not.
Yes.
Because you know how you'll watch a movie that you like loved, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's still fun because it's nostalgic. But no. I've seen this movie quite a few times now.
Yeah.
And every time I laugh out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes at different things than like the last time, but literally every time.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I was, too, laughing out loud.
Like so good. Okay. Should I do trivia and then our ratings or ratings, trivia? Okay.
Then ratings.
So I didn't go and fact check these because there's really, who's going to fact check it, right? But these were on IMDb, which made me feel like they might be more legit than something totally obscure. I'm not sure. Okay. Before he came to Hollywood, John Hamm, who plays Ted in this movie, was a high school drama teacher at the John Burroughs School in Ladue, Missouri. Ready for this? Ready for this next part? One of his acting students was Ellie Kemper.
Shut up.
Who plays Becca. It almost feels too good to be true, but IMDb
I believe it. I mean, the world is
crazy.
Works in crazy ways.
I was like, that's insane.
I love that.
I'm obsessed.
I really hope that is
okay,
true.
So this I'm excited to dive into when we get there. In the original script, the bachelorette party made it to Las Vegas.
Yes,
they did, baby. We'll be talking about that.
Yes, they did.
Paul Feig had even prepped the scenes, and they planned to shoot there. However, after the release of The Hangover, he felt that they did Las Vegas so well that anything Bridesmaids did would be pale in comparison and decided to change the sequence. When discussing funny alternatives to a wild girls' weekend in Las Vegas, someone suggested, well, what if they never get there? This led to the addition of the scene on the airplane. I'm telling you, iconic. And this is going to be one of the points that I know you and I are going to make throughout all of this. Trust your rewrites, because so much of what is quoted in this film is not in that original script.
It's true.
So you gotta trust your collaborators. You gotta trust yourself, the rewrites, all of it, because oh my God. Okay. This was the highest grossing R-rated female comedy of all time in the domestic box office, edging out Sex and the City.
God damn.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Rebel Wilson and Matt Lucas were roommates in real life.
What the fuck?
Judd Apatow pushed hard for wild physical comedy, while Annie and Kristen preferred to go for subtler comedy. The film's most notorious sequence, the diarrhea scene, was largely at the insistence of Apatow and the director.
It wouldn't be the same without that, I would argue. That and the plane sequence are the two most iconic sequences of the whole movie. So again, though,
trust collaborators, but also trust your voice, because I also think the balance of that film, that it is so much more of this more subtle humor, and then it has those big things, is kind of the perfect thing. And then Paul Rudd appears in a deleted scene as Dave, who briefly dates Annie. His role is uncredited, but the scene is shown in the deleted scene section of the bonus.
Like bigot guy.
Yes, Paul Rudd.
My God, I would have actually loved to see that.
Me too. I kind of want to look it up. This was the first Judd Apatow production to receive Academy Award nominations.
For what?
You would have thought that I had seen that part, but I didn't. We'll look that up. Co-writer Annie was on set throughout the entire production in case of rewrites, despite being 8 months pregnant.
Oh my God.
When I tell you that women are
incredible,
literally everything. Hello? 8 months. Listen, Script Babies, I've been 8 months pregnant. I've been there. Holy mother of God. Your bladder is not working. All of the things. I was just so impressed. And she's in the film.
Impressive.
She's the one in the airplane next to her. Okay. So the scores, darling. What do you give? Now again, preface, this is an early draft. What is your Script Daddy script rating?
So my script rating for the script that we read, the early draft, is 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Usually I will read it. It's very short and it's not it's not Script Babies. You know how I usually do, where I'm usually much more thorough, but I just didn't have as much to say. Here, I'll read it. It says, "We clearly read a very early draft, and it was so interesting to see the writer's original vision for the story. In the first 30 pages, the script has some of the most hilarious dialogue I've ever read, and almost none of it made it to the later drafts and to the movie. Overall, it's such a fun story, and it's cool to see where it all started. You never know where your story will go when other people come on board, and since I know the movie so well, it's wild to see how bringing on a co-writer that's a comedian can help streamline the story, dialogue, and overall experience of watching this journey unfold." Because Kristen Wiig really came on and...
Period.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that just reminded me, I forgot to add one last bit of trivia. The project was written over a period of several years. Kristen Wiig had her day job on Saturday Night Live in New York City, while Annie would work on the script in Los Angeles. The two would meet on the weekend and compare notes and conduct table reads, often with Judd Apatow in attendance to get his notes. I thought that was awesome.
That is interesting, and it makes sense because it feels like, we'll get into this later, but there's specific, parts in the script where the writer, Annie, literally says, hey, this is rough from here on out, and it's not solidified, or there'll be parts in the dialogue where she's like, insert funny, she'll leave breaks where it's like, this line could be funnier. So it's clearly like a draft that I feel like she pitched the idea to Judd or something. They decided to make it and they just were workshopping it. And it's not the first draft, but it's a very early draft.
Totally.
So it's interesting.
I really still don't know what I would give the script. What I went back and forth. Horde.
Me too. It was difficult to kind of pin down because
it really was
so good.
The movie's so good,
and
the
it's
script,
such an early draft.
And again,
that I didn't want to be too harsh.
True, and also
it's a work in progress.
It is also well written in the sense that everything that we're gonna get into about it that quote unquote doesn't work doesn't really have anything to do with the ability of them as or her, Annie, whoever, as writers. It's well written. It's just
it just further shows that your story is going to go places, and it's the early drafts are not your final draft, but that the changes you make when it services the story, it makes a stronger story.
100%.
It's a very great example of that.
100%. And so then my rating for the film, I have to be honest, this also, I don't know why rating systems really gets my stomach to drop.
It does.
To my tush. I have to be honest, I was going back and forth between a 9.8 and a 10 because I actually...
For the script?
No, for the film.
Oh, I haven't given my film score yet.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was starting with mine.
Oh, you're starting with your film score. Give it.
Oh, did I not give the other one?
You didn't give script score.
What's happening?
You just said that you were vacillating back and forth between what to give it.
I thought I said it. Okay. Gang. My adrenals have been going through some things. My brain's not working.
Dreams.
Okay. Sorry. My script... it was a 7 for me. Period. It was a 7. Okay. I originally was 7.5, 7.4, and I was it feels realistically like a 7.
I was going to give a 7.2 originally, but that
didn't resonate.
Just after the first 30, 40 pages, it's just kind of
Fair. Totally fair. Mm-hmm. So now that I gave away mine, my film score, I was 9.8 or 10. Because I was saying to Scott, I was I really have a hesitancy to throw 10s around, and I haven't up until this point.
You haven't?
But I have to say,
girl,
watching it last night, I literally had the thought,
how can it be better?
It couldn't be.
What would you take out?
It's a perfect comedic film.
Yeah.
To the point of it's so impressive. The fact that this came out in 2011 and in 2025, I am just as charmed by it, if not more so, because I'm older now. I was a lot younger when I saw it, and so there's certain things about it that are actually in some ways more relatable to me and all this stuff.
Totally.
That I literally was this is a 10. This is a 10 for me.
Hell yeah.
So
girl.
it feels good to say.
Hell yeah.
It feels good.
I love that. My script score is also a 10 out of 10 because there was part of me that was going to give it a 9 out of 10, but then I was why?
Yeah.
No part of this is warranting a 9. Like, there's
Agreed.
nothing I would change. And the changes that they made to get to this point of the story, it's so well done, and
It's
it
so
shows
impressive.
such a handle on comedy that they, like, both of them, Annie and Kristen, are masters of comedy and their comedic sensibilities. It's so impressive. The setups, the dialogue, I die for it. This is what I wrote after watching the movie. The movie is comedic perfection. All the characters were honed so well, and their motivations and desires were so well set up, especially the dynamics between Annie and Helen. Helen not having a female friend makes her feel threatened by Annie and Lillian's connection. And Annie's failed bakery being the reason she's terrified of losing more things makes her feel like she has to fight to maintain Lillian's friendship. So they're both fighting for her based on their insecurities, which when neither of them needs to do that, and it's the perfect vehicle for comedic drama because their rivalry is the fulcrum of the
100%.
tension in this
And
movie.
you just summed it up so well.
I just love because like that wasn't in the original draft.
No.
Then I said all the other characters in the ensemble are also so much better established than they are in the OG screenplay, which also heightens the comedy so nicely. Overall, this is an incredible example of seeing where a script can go with the right collaborators on board. It is. So many parts of the movie are night and day different from the screenplay, and everything heightens the stakes, widens the gap between the two best friends, solidifies one person as like the one with their foot forward. Like they change. It's like chess, and
100%.
It's just so well done, and like the comedy just built like. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because we're not in the notes stuff, but like
I know.
I was so impressed by how the comedy and the exposition that you get through the comedy all plays on top of each other and works in concert together. And like you're calling back things from before, or since they solidified the characters so well in the ensemble, you get to see their different interests and insecurities exploited through the comedy, and it all works together in this nicely fit little puzzle.
But you know what? I love what you just said though about the idea of because what you said about Helen not having a female friend or like really having friends at all, let alone a female friend. That is such an interesting point because the thing that was really hitting me after having read the script and then watching the movie was that in the script, it felt like Annie was just kind of always a mess. It felt like Annie just perpetually was a person who was going through shit. Whereas in the movie, they did a really, really like honestly kind of brilliant job of showing this is a woman who's going through something. She's a woman who's had it together, who's been successful, but she's going through a really tough moment in her life. And she's making choices based on this tough moment in her life.
Yeah.
And it made me, it made me like appreciate that choice so much because it made it so much more Annie was so much more interesting in the film because not that like watching a character who's always struggling isn't interesting. Like we've seen that done before in a way that is interesting. But like you said, mixed with the Helen of it all, it really was like a cocktail of perfection.
Yeah, because
the perfect conflicts.
Yeah, because they're both fighting over Lillian, and like Helen just at first seems like a bitch, like a rich bitch, but that's not it at all. She feels threatened because Lillian is her only real friend. And so when she sees Annie coming along, she's like, oh, fuck, I'm going to lose that. So she wants to alienate Annie, which then just solidifies to Annie that the last thing that I have to lose is going to be lost because now she's in a different socioeconomic tier than me. She likes different things than I do. Because so I guess we'll just we'll start getting into specifics now. But one thing that I loved was that, so in the OG script, because I feel like if you're listening to this and I'll be very surprised if you haven't seen Bridesmaids. So I'm going to skip a little bit ahead in the story. So in the movie, Annie and like the kind of friendship breakup that she has with Lillian it's all incremental. It kind of builds on each other. These little things, and like, well, there's big snafus that happen, all leading up to the point where Lillian is like, I don't think you should be the bridesmaid anymore.
Or the maid of honor. Yeah.
Maid of honor. There we go. Because it's too stressful for you. And Helen's done this before. I just think it'd be easier for everyone if that happens. And Annie's kind of like, oh, fuck. Okay, I guess. In the script that we read, it's like Annie's decision. And Annie's kind of like gives Helen, like, she's like, I'm not good at this. You're good at this. You do it. And then she has one interaction with Lillian where Lillian kind of is talking about something that she would have, been disparaging about before. And it kind of shows that she's becoming maybe a little bit more bougie.
Yeah.
And Annie decides that she's going to distance herself just like that. And so in the movie, they give her everything's taken away from her.
Yep.
And the stakes keep raising for Annie, and she keeps getting confronted with her biggest fear, that she's going to lose her best friend, that she's not worthy of her anymore, and that she's not cool. She's not like, rich, all these things, because like her business failed, all that. And I just thought it was so incredible to see them streamline a character's journey like that.
Completely
because
agree.
It's so different, because the script was a little bit flaccid, and they really
100. Well, okay, so a couple
it.
of the differences in the script, Annie is not a baker, didn't have a business.
She bakes on the side.
But like barely. Like at the end, she gets a job at a bakery, like working at a bakery. But like it's such a nothing burger that you don't like walk through the film going like, she's a baker. It's like so, but also there's so many storylines going on. There's so many B, C, D plots going on in the script
characters
that like, even if they do reference it more than once, you kind of lose it because it's so not central to it. Whereas to me, then seeing the choice to have her having had the agency of like, she owned a bakery with her face on the sign. Mm-hmm. And yes, it fell apart. It didn't, all that stuff. But like within the first 10 minutes or so of the film, to know that about her, but to also have us learn it. And again, gorgeous exposition. They're walking down the street. It's on. Lillian's like, fuck, we should have picked a different street.
Well done.
So well done. They don't make a meal out of it. Whereas in the script, they're so on the nose all the time. They're giving you all the information you need and then some. And I thought that was such an interesting thing to keep in mind too, is that like, again, earlier draft, and you do have to allow yourself in earlier drafts to like vomit, go long, go all of that. But it felt so glaringly obvious to me from the script to the screen to go like, oh no, like they say everything in the script. Like you learn so much about like Annie and Lillian growing up and like, which
was
again,
cool to see that context because that history is still obviously there in the movie, but you just don't see it explored. So to read the OG script and to see these different portions of it was really cool.
It was super cool, but to me, it feels like the kill your darlings thing a little bit when you go like, cool, but ultimately not necessary.
Nope.
Because the acting choices, Maya Rudolph brought something to Lillian that was not on the page for me at all.
Absolutely.
Because I honestly felt like even though the script really explores their friendship a lot more, like with flashbacks and all that stuff, I still like didn't fully get it about their friendship. Whereas like in the movie, it's not even their dialogue that's different. It's like their chemistry kind of makes you fill in the blanks in a way that like only great writing and great acting can allow for.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? But okay, to go back to like early script in it, did you notice how in this script, how often they were doing phone scenes?
I did not.
Colin, she literally, our intro to Lillian is on the phone with Annie. Yeah. Literally. So in the movie,
a lot of phone things.
And then her mom, she's on the phone with her mom a lot.
Yeah, and then
she's
later
on the
they
phone.
have all the back and forth with the bridesmaids on the phone, like
yes.
for the Bachelorette. And then after that, when they're like,
crazy. So what's interesting about that is I was also like, oh, script and writing right now, there's like a phone scene or two. Not to say you can't have phone scenes, but how much more interesting, specifically when you're writing a movie that ultimately is around a friendship, to introduce the friendship via the phone is not it.
No.
And while you're reading the script, it's not like glaring, but then when you like watch the film, you're like, oh no, it's so much more dynamic to see their rapport in person with each other. And then it's so fun that they're like secretly doing a workout class they shouldn't be doing. It's immediately.
I love that so much.
So
because
it tells us so much about every choice they made for the film took out all the extra dialogue that the film was giving and just gave you like situations that made you go like, oh, these are the kind of friends they are. They go to this workout class, but they don't want to pay it. Yeah. So they're doing it behind the tree and then they laugh it off and they go get a coffee. Like that was actually more of what we needed to know to enjoy this film than all the backstory we kept getting in the movie. Or sorry, in the script.
Another thing I realized since we read the 2 different versions of the script was that in the script that you can find, like the first one we read, where it's like the final draft, like very, it is verbatim the movie, which again, sus. We've already talked about that. We don't know if it's post production or an actual final draft. Anyway, one thing that I noticed that they did for that draft is the action is very, very stripped back, which allows for the dialogue and the comedy and the dialogue to be the star of the show instead of getting too in the weeds about what we're seeing and what we're doing.
Yep.
And the OG script has way more action in it. There's still a lot of dialogue. It was a very fast read, but they stripped everything back. They streamlined every sequence.
You're so right.
Which I thought was really cool to see.
I agree.
You're but right. There's like I said, there in my initial assessment, there is incredible dialogue, comedy dialogue in the OG script. Like my first note is on page 2. And it's so in the movie Script Babies, as you probably know, but if you haven't seen it, it opens with Annie having sex with Ted, her ex.
Cut my balls.
And, God. And then it cuts from there to her putting herself together to get back into bed to look like she's waking up like fresh. In the OG script, it opens with Annie. There's no sex scene. It opens with her putting the makeup on, getting into bed.
So glad you're bringing this up.
And then it's the night after a first date. So it's not her ex-boyfriend. So again, there's not the stakes there with her having lost her ex-boyfriend and like still going back and begging for crumbs of affection from him, which then is also perfect in the movie because that sets her up to treat Rhodes the way that Ted's treating her.
Yep.
Everything services
is so
Annie's journey.
Yep.
And again, it works in concert together to make her rock bottom moment like so multifaceted. It's so good. But so in the script, that the OG script, she wakes up and she's like, "Oh, I was scared. Whatever." And like we set Annie up to be this ultimate, like she's like a doormat for this man, and she's such a people pleaser for him. And like so I want to read all the dialogue on page 2. Would you want to read Annie or Ted? And we can read it for the Script Babies because I think that this dialogue is like 10 out of 10 hilarious because she's so pathetic and it's hilarious. But so they're in bed and Ted looks at her and he's like, "I just want to be honest right off the bat."
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love that.
Annie struggles to maintain her composure. "I'm just so busy and I don't have time for another person.
Yeah, me too. I'm so
And summer's
busy.
coming.
Yeah, summer, exactly. It's a crazy season. So you just want to give me a call in the fall?
Yeah, I'm not going to be in town much even in the fall.
You shouldn't be. Yeah. Halloween?
I'm going to be traveling a lot for work.
Yeah, me too. It's so many business trips to places that are just like far away because I'm doing really well at work.
And honestly, I don't even know how I feel about the whole monogamy thing. Is one person really enough for anyone? I mean, I like to be with a lot of different people.
Oh, it's so refreshing to hear you say that because isn't that what everyone thinks but is afraid to say? I mean, it's science. I don't want a relationship either. Like, let's just say that. And I wouldn't even care whatever you do or I do. I just want to have tons of fun. Like no strings attached at all. I'm just different from other girls.
I love that. Like, so all that is not necessary and it's all cut out from the later drafts and from the movie, but I love the character. I love when a character rambles on like this and it's just like so eager to play. "Oh yeah, no, like I'm cool girl." When he's like, "Oh, I'll even be busy in the fall," and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, Halloween." Like as if Halloween, like just making up this false reality to validate this man where it's like, yeah, Halloween, everyone's so busy at Halloween. Like it plays into that thing of how women diminish themselves for men and how ridiculous it is to see.
Well, and I thought about this, the brilliance of them starting with the sex. Not only is it funny because it's so physical comedy, like the Judd Apatow of it all, it's physical comedy because the way the sex is happening is so funny. I mean, it's like, I want to go fast. When it's so...
I want to go fast.
I want to go fast. She's like,
child.
Oh. Also, when he later in the script goes, "Can he do this?"
And he just like moves her boob around.
I was literally in bed last night.
Yeah, probably.
Scott was like half asleep next to me, and I was crying. I was laughing so hard. And I've seen it like 100 times.
That moment
But that's a real guy,
so
by the way. Script Babies, women, I think we can attest, real guy.
Oh,
I have had had a
depressing.
person do that before, and I laughed. So anyway.
Seriously?
But, yes.
That is so depressing.
But so depressing. And I laughed though, because that's
You
me. I don't
laugh in their face.
I don't fake shit.
I
So
love that.
Anyway, but what I was gonna say is what's brilliant, not just funny, but brilliant about the choice to have it start on the sex and then go to her doing the makeup in the mirror and sneaking in and doing whatever, is that now we know what kind of sex they had. In the script,
True.
we could fill in the blanks and be like,
it could have been amazing.
It could have been incredible. And maybe, yeah, he's like kind of a little bit of a fuck boy, but like they have a lot of chemistry in bed or something like that. The brilliance of not only the comedy, but now we know about Annie, like that wasn't even good for her. Like that wasn't even a good experience, but she's in a place where she wants like validation, attention, something so bad that she's willing to like play this game with this guy who she just had horrendous sex with.
Yeah.
That's like arguably a smart choice because it's one action, not even like a full page, but now we already know more about Annie than if we had started on just her doing the makeup and sneaking into bed.
Absolutely. And instead of a 2-3 page sequence, it's all done in like a page, maybe a page and a quarter. Like and it's so economical and so well done.
And again, I would recommend, I mean, I really actually would recommend people to read the draft that you and I read, specifically if you're into comedic writing, reading that and then watching this film, because it truly to me is a masterclass, these differences. And we're going to keep getting into them, but really like this script walked so that the film could run because they made such smart choices based off of the script, but so different.
Yeah.
But again, the dialogue is the strongest thing of the entire, it is legitimately funny the whole time.
It really is.
Even when the scenes get too long, as the script goes on, you get into the weeds for sure.
Yeah. So after the first third of the movie, the comedy is still funny.
Yeah.
It's just not as sharp as it is in the beginning of it. And the sequences, like the Vegas sequence is funny and funny things happen, but it was ultimately unnecessary. But we can get into that. One thing that I also realized about the way Annie writes, that's her name, right? Annie, yeah. A formatting thing I realized about her is the way that she utilizes grammar and sentence structure is so well done, because when I was reading the characters' dialogue on the page, I could get a sense of their intonation and their cadence from the way that she used hyphens and semicolons. Mm-hmm. And it was really smart because it added she's able to capture the way people speak.
You could hear it.
Even though it's all heightened. I thought it was really cool. So like, it's read this script for a really good example of how to format and structure your sentences and just your dialogue to give it a natural experience for the reader. I thought was really, really, really well done. And she utilizes it to emphasize the comedy too, which is just, she's a brilliant writer.
Well, and I also think to me, this is partially like my favorite type of humor is literally this, where it's like, it kind of, I'm not even going to pretend it's on the same level, but it reminded me of what inspired me with Margot. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margot. I did a web series that's
Script Babies, go on YouTube and find her web series. It is genius, hilarious, sexy, beautiful, gorgeous. I've always loved it.
But this movie and Broad City in particular were the things that made me go like, oh, like I have to write a female ensemble comedic thing. But my tone was different. But that being said, to me, the funniest humor is when it's real with a heightened crank, but that like the brilliance of this film and the dialogue is you do not have a sense of, oh, we're setting up a one-liner at all.
Yeah.
It is funny dialogue. It is funny conversation. It is someone in the middle of talking, saying something that's funny in a way that happens in real life. Obviously, again, it's cranked up a little bit, but not all the time. We're not always in 10 out of 10 in the film.
Yeah.
We have moments where we crank up, and then we have moments where we go right back down, and it's relatable and it's real and it's whatever. And that it's so like symbiotic in the film that like you find yourself enjoying the moments that are more heightened because you can kind of trust it doesn't live there the whole time.
Yeah, especially with because the heart that they add into the film, the version of the script that became the film has way more heart than the OG draft.
Way more.
And it's really, really like it's very well done. The heart is so real. Like the connection that her and Lillian have, like you feel for them when they're going through this. And it's real. And that scene with Megan, when Megan comes to her and she's like, "I'm life. You need to like pick like,"
girl,
which is not in the OG draft. In the OG draft, it's Annie's roommate who does that.
I literally put. Let me find my note because it's further down. I literally wrote, where is I said the fact that they chose Megan to be the one who talks sense into her, but in the quirkiest way, was a fun and really smart choice.
Yeah, because it subverts Megan's character because we set her up to be this ridiculous person, but she turns out to be the one that has everything together.
Yeah, and what she's saying, again, there's physical comedy there, they're slapping each other, all that stuff, but like it's kind of brilliant, and they did it in a way where, like, despite the fact that it is us seeing a very different side of Megan, we immediately are here for it, and we don't mind the exposition dump of it all because it's done very authentically.
It's one of the places where, because we've talked in previous episodes where how a lot of times the big emotional parts aren't in the monologue.
Yep.
But this is one of the exceptions where, and it's not like it's this tearjerker moment.
Right.
It's very real, and it's this woman who is not the beauty queen, who she says, like, it was not easy to go up and down the hallways of high school with this. Like, people, like, and then they get into more comedy of, like, they try to blow me up. They're throwing firecrackers at me and stuff. But it's real because, of course, she would be the one out of that whole friend group that had to dig down and be like, this is either going to crush me and break me, or I'm going to be like, fuck you, become better than all you motherfuckers, still be my weird self.
Yeah.
And go and excel higher than all you bitches.
Yeah.
And it's her that brings it to, like, and she genuinely cares for Annie. It's so beautiful.
Whereas if Helen had done it, if any of the other bridesmaids, it's not that it wouldn't have worked. I think you would have, like, taken what you got kind of thing. But choosing, again, the contrast of it all made it so interesting that they would choose the character you wouldn't imagine it from. But then all of a sudden you find yourself being like, damn. Like, she's talking about all the houses she owns, like all these different things where you're like,
I bought an 18-wheeler just because I could.
Yes.
Like, bitch.
But like legitimate advice there that, like, but I also just looked at my note and I realized her and Helen are introduced on the phone in the script as well. Her and Helen on the phone, her and her mom on the phone, that I just thought that was so interesting because, again, it made me really empathetic to all of us writers in our earlier drafts because we are so trying to hear, feel, and see the story. We're trying to be that gorgeous space for it to come in and land. And again, we're chipping away. That, like, I honestly felt like compassion when I realized how often we were introducing characters with a phone. Because it made me go, like you said, this woman is a brilliant writer. Yeah. Like, this isn't like some, like, oh, she doesn't know. She's a brilliant writer.
Wrote Judd Apatow's highest grossing movie.
Hello.
Like, this draft went on to become
they said the biggest female. Yeah, hello. So it made me so compassionate in the sense where I was like, once I read the third intro or like of the phone call or whatever, I was like, it's just way too much. But it made me go, but again, this draft had to exist in order for them, whether it was Judd, whether it was someone else, whether it was Kristen going, we can't keep doing intros on the phone. It's our chemistry is so much better, so much more dynamic. Imagine if Annie had met Helen on the phone in this film. You need the moment where she turns in that ridiculous dress.
That floor-length gown at a fucking engagement party.
You need that moment because now we feel what Annie feels, which is like, oh shit.
Exactly. And it sets Helen up in this way. She's that woman that is just somehow always so perfect. Yeah. And like, it's like, fuck you.
And did you feel like Helen in the script? Helen is different in the script.
Oh, yeah.
And now, granted, we cannot undermine what Rose Byrne brought to this film in any way.
Everyone's a bit more limp in the OG
that is
script.
A perfect description, yeah.
Because their characters aren't fully formed yet. They're not solidified. Even some of the names are different too, and all the bridesmaids are just kind of jumbled in together. You kind of meet them in a quick succession.
You don't know who's talking most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they have not nary a character description. Literally not even one.
Which always makes
me. I know. And they all kind of sound, all the other bridesmaids, only Helen, Lillian, and Annie really have distinct voices, and the rest of them all kind of sound the same. They have shades of their own.
Megan, a little bit, but still.
Megan is a bit different, but
still her dialogue is different.
You can kind of tell, it's just all these things that remind you that this is a really early draft. And yes, to have more compassion with their early drafts, because writing is rewriting.
Writing is rewriting. Writing is refinement.
I'm sorry, I will never believe the Hollywood legend that American Beauty was made off of a first draft. I just won't. It's just
also if it was good for freaking you.
True,
whatever.
Actually, you know what? Exactly.
You know what?
But it's because again, Script Babies. Another reason we know that this was really, really early, other than all the other things we mentioned, is I'm gonna get really close and be quiet. The page count was 134 pages,
which. Specifically for a comedy is a lot.
But my dyslexic ass read it in 2.5 hours.
It's a quick read.
It was a quick read
because it's dialogue heavy and it's funny, so you can absolutely race through it. But
it just shows because even with the phone, there's so many phone things, you could tell they were still figuring the story out.
100%.
They were just getting the information that they needed to get on the page to then mine through. It's on there. They just dumped it all in there.
100%.
And they fucking did that. But back to some of the dialogue on page 6. So on page 6, Annie and Lillian it's they're seen at the cafe, but I think they're on the phone, but it turns out to be the scene in the cafe, and she's telling her that she's embarrassed about something. She's embarrassed that she took that she fucked Ted or whatever. But then Lillian's embarrassed about, so I forgot the setup, but Annie is trying to reassure Lillian that whatever she went through and what she's embarrassed about isn't so bad. And this is what she says to her. And it just, reminded me of something you would write, because it's so funny, but also it's hilarious. Annie says, okay, just take a deep breath, look in the mirror, and remember when I was getting my braces off and farted at the orthodontist. And
I did laugh out loud at that when I read that.
I laughed out loud. There's so many moments reading this where I was
so specific.
Laughing hard out loud. And none of that made it to the movie, but I was like, God damn, Annie can fucking write.
Well, but again, that was one of my takeaways, was despite how much this script changed, it being super fucking funny was ultimately the most important ingredient of the whole film.
Completely.
And it is why it ended up where it did, because you can't read this script and think anything other than this is so funny. Yeah, I got a bunch of other notes. Great. But it's so funny
hilarious,
in a way where it does take a little something to get you laughing out loud from the script. And I was laughing out loud from the script.
I would read this and be like, okay, can this be better? Yes. But do I have to work on this and make this? Yes.
100%.
The concept is so good.
I completely agree.
Page 8, there's another dialogue I love. So this is when Annie still works in a jewelry store in the OG script. She still works there. And a lot of the same dynamics are, in the movie that were in the OG script with the jewelry scene stuff. But in the OG script, the boss's name, it's a woman, her name is Donna. Yes. But so Donna, Annie keeps trying, since they're commission based, Annie keeps trying to get a better spot in the jewelry store to make more commission. And she's put in the random home goods section, and people are kind of giving her shit oh yeah, I'm sure there'll be a big rush for letter openers. And she's like, it's happened before. Yeah. And so at one point she's propositioning Donna to have a better, to be put in engagement rings. She's like, Donna, put me in engagement rings, please. I
was going to say, please read this.
And Donna kind of gives her a test. And this is what it says. Donna says, Annie asks her, and Donna goes, Annie, what's the calibration for a 2-carat diamond in a standard English setting? Annie says, 5. And Donna goes, I just made all that up. None of that was real. I just put words together. You're not ready for the big leagues. Understand? I just made all that up. I just put words together.
It's so good. I literally wrote that down. I was like, this line has to be read. It's so good.
I love it so much. Because I just love when a character is in a mundane role, a mundane job. You're just selling jewelry in a small town, but you're taking it so seriously.
Yeah, well.
And then the trials that you're putting someone through is completely made up.
Completely made up. I love that she's those are just words put together. It's so funny.
I just put words together. It's so funny.
Kristen Wiig's impression of a dick and balls in the film is so fucking good.
It really is.
It like I fucking love that. And also Maya Rudolph's delivery of he also told you you need dental work. He's an asshole.
Yes. That
Again,
line.
so specific but so funny. And then they lead into she puts the brownie in her, whatever. But like the way they're going back and forth, it's so real.
Like that's what you would say to your friend.
Yeah.
Like
then you're like,
so
stop
realistic.
trying to justify this. Like, I don't care that he has a dick, whatever. Like
I could
he also told you need dental
you
work.
Would have told me back in the day when I was with one of my fuck ass exes. Like he told you need dental work, Colin. Like what are you talking about?
Like so good. And it not only is it funny, again, like you just like get their friendship. Like you just get it. Also interesting how they like completely cut Dougie from the movie. He's a I mean, not big part, but much like all the
he's much more in it. You don't need him.
You don't need him.
You really don't need Dougie. In the script, Dougie, like he's this like broy, goofy guy who Annie like is very annoyed. I mean, who Lillian is very annoyed
says
by.
It feels like I'm kissing my brother. I don't know what's happening. I was like, damn. But like, then they show that they have moments where they show that like Lillian obviously loves him, but it does toe a line where it's like it's just not needed. We just don't need it. Annie also has a completely different roommate in the script.
Yeah, completely different.
That was kind of a benign character too.
Yeah,
like
Steve. I mean, they just added the other character and like they kept them more for just comedic relief.
That was one of my notes.
They don't really push the story forward
at
all.
No, because I think Steve was Steve was in it actually quite a bit and compared to what the roommates in the film are.
Yeah.
But like when you look back, it was kind of a nothing burger. He just kind of served as like a transition.
Yes, he was a transitional and a vehicle for exposition. Like I have a note on page 10 where I said, having Steve the roommate call out various points of exposition is such an easy and fun way to give the reader more pieces of Annie's history by wrapping it all up in comedy. Great reminder of how to use on the nose. How to be on the nose in a funny way. He gives the exposition that Annie's ex-boyfriend used to live with her and that like she has like credit problems. Creditors are calling her.
But you feel the exposition. Like you
feel the exposition, yes. And it ultimately doesn't make it forward in the other drafts because it wasn't necessary. But like in the context of a comedy, it was a good reminder that like when you do have to get exposition through and you've already set up that this is kind of a ridiculous world, it can be a little bit more on the nose when it's a side character, but it can also be better, and it was better.
Well, and I also think, like we've talked about this before, but this draft and then the final film is such a lesson in what you say is just as important as what you don't say. Because again, this script, it's like they lay everything out for you. You don't really have to wonder about literally anything to the point where some of it you're like, I don't actually need all of this. Whereas the film, if you realize like you get way less information, but the information you get is absolutely essential for you to feel the things you need to feel for the film. Yeah. That like, to me, it literally feels like they went through and was like, what is absolutely necessary and what's not? Because we were able to get from them walking down a street, looking at a bakery. Okay, she used to have one. Yeah. It closed down. She's bitter about it. And then like with Rhodes, she's able to be like, well, my ex-boyfriend left me and I'm in debt and like whatever. Like that's all it needed to be. Whereas like in the movie, in the script, they had to keep pulling. We had to get hit over the head how broke she was, like to the point where it was almost like starting to make me feel crazy, where I was like, just tell your best friend you can't afford it. Literally. Just say it. Whereas like in the movie, you're more sympathetic because they allude to it, but you're not like, it's not central. It's just like compared to Helen, everyone's broke. You know what I mean? Like, but in the script, it literally felt like they were finding new occasions to let us know how broke she was to the point of crazy.
Because it's not a plot heavy movie, and it felt like they were trying to emphasize that more as like a plot tool. Yeah. Because I mean, this is very squarely like a character-driven movie, I would say.
I think so.
It's just so good. Page 15, there in the OG script, there's literally like no, as I already said, character descriptions, but Helen does have one, and it's pretty fun. It's on page 15, and it says, it's Helen, early 30s, Lillian's bridesmaid and friend from the tennis club. She's a tall, leggy blonde, all smiles, East Coast pretty with a lot of cream cashmere turtleneck sweaters in her closet. She sits in a cream-colored living room on a huge couch cream couch with lots of candles glowing. That's another thing that so in the script, we find out that the reason Helen is so rich is because her husband owns quote, the Starbucks of candle stores. There's like one on every corner, and like there's just always candles all around
everywhere.
Helen anytime we see her.
I did kind of wish that would have been it, because I was like, what a fun visual that like in a
the
runner
engagement
of it.
scene and the engagement party scene in the script, Annie gets pissed. She's like, it smells like vanilla in here. Why does it smell like vanilla in here? Like, it's like so ridiculous and stupid. But I thought that was a really good use of character description. Also, Helen this is a line that Helen has in the script that didn't make it to the movie that I love, because it's such one of those mean girl lines where like you say something to be, oh, cutesy, but really you're being a bitch. So in the script, when there is no food poisoning scene, Script Babies, that was part of the trivia, right? So there's no food poisoning scene, which I'm sorry, it's not Bridesmaids without that scene. I think that scene, I am talking on my ass a little bit, but just from my perception is like that scene kind of broke the mold for female comedians to show that, like, because usually that's kind of boy humor, poopy doo-doo everywhere, but seeing it with a bunch of women playing it full force like that is a tour de force.
But part of the brilliance of it, because you know me, I don't typically love humor like that as much. Yeah. I am more like, give me the dialogue that makes me pee my pants and like the situational humor. That being said, though, the reason why that scene works for me so much is because it's juxtaposed with this face-off between Annie and Helen.
Yes.
If you didn't have the face-off going on and they overindulged the other stuff, it would have fallen flat because it was so tonally not what you were expecting. It's the way they did it made it work, but I did think specifically because it was not in the script, it made me focus on it so much more in the film, that them going back and forth between this intense moment and Kristen Wiig being sweatier every time they cut back to her. I, again, was laughing out loud. Like, I'm not saying, every time they cut back, I just pictured someone like spraying her again. Like every time that she's like,
Jordan Allen's perfect.
It's so
funny
that I honestly think the juxtaposition to me was the genius of that scene, was that they were willing to shock you with the poo-poo and the vomit, but then they just kept going back to this kind of a slightly pivotal moment between these two women where they finally are getting a little...
That's where the real tension is. The core of the drama and tension is Helen against Annie.
And knowing
fighting over
that
Lillian.
Although it is not Annie's fault that they got food poisoning, it was Annie's recommendation to go to this place, and that her best friend shits
herself in the middle of the street in a couture one-of-a-kind dress.
And those are stakes that did not exist in the script.
Yeah, because they try on dresses and then they go have lunch.
Because we go from that image of her, it's happening, it happened, and you're like, oh my God. And then you have Chris being like, you're shitting in the street.
Yeah.
Her genius, her little, you're really doing it. You're doing it. But the fact that we go from that to on the, like them talking and her kind of being like, oh no, sorry, I'm wrong. That's after I am wrong. If Lillian was a real person, she would have then been like, girl, I think maybe we need to switch gears here. But she doesn't do it until Vegas doesn't happen. You're right. For a second, I absolutely, you're right.
But so in the script, they have a whole scene where they're trying on dresses and stuff. And Annie is trying on a dress in the changing room. And she has this whole fantasy sequence of her having to fight off men at the wedding because they just love this dress so much, and she ends up with Christian Bale chopping wood in a forest. It's actually
actor Christian Bale.
It's actually hilarious.
It is really
completely unnecessary for the story, so I can see why they cut all that out. But so after so she's having this fantasy, and Helen bursts into her changing room and cuts the fantasy short. And this is what Helen says when she sees her.
Funny.
She busts in, she goes, "Look at your cute little boobies."
I thought of that line today. I literally thought of that line today when I was getting dressed. I thought of hearing Helen go, "Look at your
perfect mean girl thing to say." She's saying she's flat chested, but being so nice. Look at your cute little boobies.
It's so...
It made me... I burst out. I was like, crime. I love that.
Girl on girl hate crime.
Literally.
So good.
But, oh, God, it really is good. You know what else? This is skipping ahead in the story, but you know what else? You know what I realized watching the movie, which I thought was really interesting, is, okay, so the whole time we introduce Rhodes, we know him as Rhodes. Mm-hmm. In the script... we find out his name is Nathan earlier on, and it's in passing. He says, "My name is Nathan Rhodes." in the movie, he's called Rhodes all the way up until the end when Annie is asking him to help find Lillian. And she's doing all those antics, throwing the litter out.
Obsessed, by the way. It's so funny. When she's like, I'm topless. And then she is, and Helen's going.
Yes. So good. She does all these antics. And then she realizes it's still not getting anywhere. And she levels with him and she says Nathan.
Yes.
She calls him Nathan. And I thought that was a really beautiful way, an easy way to add heart, because it's showing that it's playing into Annie's arc, that she is now not objectifying him and using him as like sex, because she was just set up, with her ex to think that she's just a plaything or whatever. And so she was treating Rhodes the way Ted treated her, and that she's like seeing him as a person for the first time. And I just thought that was really cool, that it's a moment that I'm only noticing that because I'm like sitting here thinking about it, but I was like, what a fun choice. I would love to know if that was the purpose of that, because literally he's only called Nathan once.
And I clocked that. I never clocked that watching the film, but obviously in this reading the script, and then I also clocked it and I loved it because one of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately is, so the majority of the scripts that I write are like always centered in relationships. It's like I can't get enough of exploring relationship dynamics. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately is you only have so many ways you can show dynamics in a relationship. Talking is the main one, but then you have to find other ways to show what exists between a dynamic between people without it. And I think what's interesting is that in the script, I was not rooting for Rhodes and Annie the way I was in the film. They were kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And
don't.
I really think one of the things that was so smart is that she didn't have this passion that had been ripped from her in the script. She just, again, was a woman who kind of felt perpetually like she was getting fucked over. Yeah. And so Rhodes is just kind of like flirting with her, but it kind of falls flat, or doesn't fall flat, but it's just like,
it does fall flat.
It does fall flat.
It does, because then
you can't ever really tell if she's interested in him.
And they bring him back around at the end, and it's this big like sweet moment, but like it's not set up for you to actually care like it is in the movie.
Whereas in the film, the genius of them giving her a passion that then kind of slapped her in the face was that we get to learn something about who she is with him and who Rhodes is in comparison to the other men that she's experienced, because almost immediately he shows an interest in not only her, but her passion. And like from jump is like, I loved that bakery, blah, 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 blah. And then they kind of do a brilliant, and we don't even see their sex. And I think it's actually kind of genius because sex is yet another brilliant way. I do think when sex scenes are done the right way, it can be so informative to the subtext of a relationship, but they chose to show you the sex with her and Ted, which we needed because we weren't going to get it, whatever. But then with Rhodes, we saw that he continuously invested in what she was passionate about and stoked it, which was information. We didn't need to see their sex because that was we were using other things to show what he brought out in her. And I loved that because it was like, old Carly felt triggered by like when she wakes up and he has like all like the fixings to like bake, because I was like, I would have like had Annie's response when I first met Scott. Like I was so like icked out by like grand gestures of sweetness. Not proud of that.
Why are you trying to save me?
Not proud of that. But I also love that like they have her instantly recognize it on the phone when she calls Lillian right after. She's like, he was being nice to me, and then of course I run away. Again, that was a really, really brilliant way to show this is a woman who's going through something and she has the self-awareness to know it. Doesn't mean she's not still behaving in a way that she doesn't like and that's destructive. Yeah. But it just felt so smart to me where I was like, they needed to find a way to differentiate that Rhodes. It's not just like whatever witty, flirty banter. This guy cares about her. There's a different thing going on there.
Yeah. It's really sweet. It's absolutely. Yes. And I love how like even the, exposition of him enjoying her baked goods so much adds like, it's like just the idea of this cop like fawning over her baked goods and like thinking so fondly of her cream puffs and stuff adds like a sweetness and softness to him that he's just so adorable. And so adorable. I loved that. It was so well done. And
I was just impressed because it made me go like, oh yeah, there there are these other ways that you can show what a dynamic is between characters that, again, exists outside of just words. Like, he is always supporting her, always.
Yeah.
Then ends up helping her find Lillian. And then it's kind of funny because she's at her apartment, but it's like, we see who he is and what he brings out in her through these ways that are not sex. Yeah. And again, sometimes you need it to be sex. For Ted, we needed to see that. We needed to see absolute heinous sex and heinous behavior juxtaposed with how she reacts to a guy who actually really likes her. And she does have chemistry. The ugly carrot thing is I was obsessed. I'm literally
so
like,
cute.
It's so
I
cute.
Love it.
I'm obsessed with movies when they really zoom in to the most like bizarre specific thing that like Rhodes.
And that's in the OG script too.
It is.
And the OG script even ends with it. Yeah, which was cute. So, I think the script, the ending in the movie is better.
The ending in the movie is better because it's a movie ending, but you feel like you earned it and you love it. It's like I was so like, nom nom. I love this movie ending. Yeah. Whereas like it was a little bit less definitely in the script. You're a little bit kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Another thing about the whole him giving her him showing her the baking supplies and her freaking out over it that we just talked about. Another thing that I realized, one of my biggest takeaways from this, I already talked about this a little bit ago, but I want to emphasize it again because it's an obvious screenwriting thing, but this movie does a really good job of hitting it home, being very clear about it, that every little dig that Annie gets and every failure that she has from, the Vegas trip goes, the wedding dress fitting goes poorly. It's food poisoning. She ruins the Vegas trip, which leads her into, then she sees Rhodes. She has a great time with Rhodes. They have a real connection. This is a great guy right in front of her, but she's just assuming that she's an object to him and vice versa. So she's treating him like an object. And then now that she in her mind, when she's going into that scene, she's this big fuck up. Annie Lillian just asked her to not be the maid of honor anymore. And she's like, yeah, I get it essentially, but she's heartbroken. And so then she's like, everything's being reinforced that I am this failure. And then he in the morning brings her the baking goods, and it's her trauma of losing all of her money that she put into her bakery. And the bakery is the reason that it went down. She's just not a good baker either. And she's just not good at this, even
though all that use her and
exactly. And so for her to be, for that scene, all those moments work on top of each other, layered on top of each other to take her to her rock bottom in such a natural, unforced way, because it's all shown comedically except for the baking thing. All of those are really funny moments, but even, Lillian asking her not to be maid of honor is not a funny scene either, because it's one of those real heart moments, just like the baking thing. So it's a real heart moment. Like, you see that this is bad for Annie, and then Rhodes is like so upset that he did this, and he tries to make it right, but he's so thrown that, like, because he doesn't know, he does know that she lost it anyway. This script is just this movie is such a good example of how to lead your character to their breaking point that's going to help them arc without it seeming forced, which is something I think that you can particularly do well in comedy, because like it is like those moments are on the nose, obviously, but it's just so well done. It really, really, really hit home. I was like, this is really great storytelling.
It really is. And I feel like now I'm thinking about other areas now in the script where they built upon it, in the film, because for instance, in the script, the whole like Annie telling Helen and all the bridesmaids, like the way it is in the film, when she's like, I think we should do a Paris theme for the shower.
Girl.
And Helen immediately shoots it down. It's so overdone. Let's talk about other stuff. That is not in the script.
It's not. The moment that they have a similar one in the script.
They have a similar one in the script with SeaWorld. And it's honestly great though. Like, it's great, but she's like, SeaWorld? We're not gonna go to SeaWorld, whatever. But to me, the betrayal was so much more impactful for the breaking point, when Annie has been through everything you just described and then some, and then she shows up to the most over the top shower you've ever conjure up in your whole brain, and the theme is what Helen like almost mocked her for.
Literally.
To me, is what made Annie snap both realistic and heightened, but like you're like, no, like it's like you're like, that's
I would lose my shit
like,
if someone was doing that to set like to create a wedge between you and I, girl. Oh my God, that would set me the fuck off. I would hold it together and go cry in my car, but
right.
But no, you're so right. And that moment is so it's earned. Her freak out, her crashing the fuck out at that thing is like, yeah, girl, tear it all down.
Yeah.
Because like, fuck you, you're taking her to Paris now. So that moment in the OG script is Helen gives her first class tickets to go to SeaWorld. And like that, the backstory with that is that Annie and Lillian always said that they would have like a dual honeymoon in SeaWorld. And so Annie's like, why don't we do the bachelorette party in SeaWorld? It's really a bachelorette in Florida with the side of SeaWorld.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, ew, SeaWorld, no, let's go to Vegas.
And particularly Helen is
particularly
like,
Helen,
ew.
yeah. And then because in the script, when she opens that card and she sees the tickets to SeaWorld, I literally was like, oh!
I know.
Even though like the same kind of moment in a different context happens in the movie, I was still shocked. I was like, that bitch!
But the double whammy of the movie is that Helen says like, the Paris theme is so overdone, mocks it, whatever, then does that exact theme and
triples down on it.
And buys her a trip. When Annie goes, what woman buys another woman a trip to London? Lesbians. And like, I know everyone's thinking it. So funny. But they double down in a way that is not the same in the script. The SeaWorld is definitely, you're like, oh shit. But it's not like the
stakes are nowhere near as high.
It's not like the shower theme with SeaWorld. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the double whammy.
Because the betrayal to Annie, and for Helen to do that and to be so conniving, it's so much better, and it shows that Helen is willing to she uses her money to just flex on these people.
And the other brilliant thing that they added to the film that was not in the script is I love that Annie gave her a heartfelt gift at the shower because it made her crash out once again.
Yeah.
And I also think it gives that moment where you watch Helen, because I was like watching Helen in it, and it's like she has that look where it's like, I can't give that to her. I can't give her the really meaningful, nostalgic gift. I can only do over the top Paris, blah, 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 blah. And I felt like this time too, watching it as like a woman in her 30s, I felt like watching it going like they also play to the really smart complexities of female friendships, but female friendships where like as much as we have moments where like we feel like Helen is acting like the villain or whatever, that being said, we never just you don't leave the movie going, Helen's the villain, Annie's the victim.
Yeah.
Like we actually, in a very, very smart ways, show why everyone's behaving the way that they are. Helen explaining why she was acting the way that she is. Actually, you do, even though it's done in kind of a comedic way, when then Annie, she's like, why are you smiling? And he's like, you're kind of an ugly crier. And she's like, no, I'm not ugly. It's just my makeup. I still look pretty good.
I'm not
pretty good. Yeah. I look pretty good. Like genius, but again, like Rose Byrne, like she's so
good in general, but she's so perfect as Helen.
She's so perfect. Well, and they were saying this was like her first like, the Russell Brand movie with
Kristen Bell and all them.
Yes.
Couples
Get
Retreat.
Him to the Green.
Oh, Get Him to, okay, yeah.
That was like the only comedic thing she's also brilliant in that film, but she, again, was predominantly known for drama, but that's why she was so good at this, is because to me, I think a lot of times people think that if someone is like a really good dramatic actor, that means that they won't necessarily be a great comedic actor. And sometimes that is true, but a lot of times people who know like the hits of drama actually can play with comedy in a way that some comedic actors don't have the same like layers that they can access. You know what I mean? And I feel like with her, that scene, like you really do like sympathize with her, where you're like, that's real. At least like as a woman, I was like, that's real. Like I would.
My husband travels all the time. I'm alone. The stepkids hate me, and I have no female friends.
I think people just ask me to do this because I'm good at it. And you're like, and then also that then when they do find Lillian, when Annie's like, can I just go? And she's like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like we get to see that she's not, I was so glad that they went that way instead of going, no, we're both going. Because it was like, no, we're showing, again, the heart of the film is that we let them be real-ish people in the sense, not fully, whatever, but like real-ish in the sense that it was like, you leave the movie and then when they have the moment where she's like, you know what, it was nice to meet you. And like, maybe we could do rock and sushi together. And she's like,
and it's not like that we don't leave them with like, oh, we're best
no,
pals
because that would
now.
be bullshit.
We can all be three best friends with Lillian. It's real. And then Annie offers her that olive branch saying, well, maybe we can have, we can go to Rock and Sushi together. And like you see Roseburn plays it in this way where she's like really touched, like, because it means like, like I can't,
Yeah, even if it doesn't happen, like what I got from it was like, even if it doesn't happen, I appreciate that she's even considering that it could happen.
Yeah.
But then also that Helen called Rhodes to be there. Like, you know what I mean? That's like that there was that little extra, or that is what it was, right? Am I pretending that
I never picked up on that, but I think so.
Because I think in the script they insinuate that she clocks it. Oh, I guess in the movie they don't specify it, but in the script they say Helen like kind of clocks it.
Yeah, I think that is
because doesn't she say
Helen says your ride's here? So I think that is.
Have to know because
I think that's absolutely what's going to be in the OG script.
That's what it was.
Rhodes has this whole explanation of like it's alternates. There's two alternate endings that are written in the OG script that we read because when there's about 15 or 20 pages left in the script, there's a note in big bold that says the rest of the script is very rough. We're still figuring out the ending, but this is the general information that you're going to explore. And so we see an ending, then we see an alternate ending between Rhodes and Annie. And Rhodes has this explanation. It's like, how did you know I was here? And one explanation is that he like has a friend that tracked her down or whatever. And then the other explanation is that he's like, I'm a cop.
Yeah.
Neither of those make it through because you don't need it. But I think you're completely spot on. I think that's what it's supposed to be, that Helen called Rhodes,
him or something like that.
Yeah. And it's really sweet. I love that.
I do too. And also too that Lillian doesn't turn her back on Helen either.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, I think there are times the only thought I had that you get like frustrated by in the film is that there is a part of you that's going like, why is Lillian like diving so heavily into all of this stuff with Helen? But then you think about her and like she wants, like it's fun to have all like the friend that has all these things set up and all the whatever and
they build in that Lillian and Annie haven't really in both the script and the movie. They build in that like they are obviously best friends, but they live in different cities now. They haven't seen each other in a while. And like, Lillian's been off in Dougie land.
Yeah.
It works.
The other thing we have to talk about is how in the script, they go to Vegas.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up. We have to talk about the Vegas.
15? It's like a
long Vegas sequence, and there's funny things in it, but it is completely unnecessary. It doesn't push the story forward at all either. Like it literally doesn't, because it only. Okay, so here was my take with that.
Okay.
So the Vegas.
Wait, we should describe a little bit of what happens in Vegas first.
Yeah, take it away.
So they fly to Vegas. Mm-hmm. We realized very quickly Annie could not afford to stay at the big bougie hotel that all the other women are at. So she's like, oh, I just have to go. I forgot something and then whatever. And she's staying at like the shittiest motel.
Rick Hotel. Hotel Rick or something.
Like there's like a cat and like gross shit in it's so like disgusting. Really gross, it's like really, really, really gross.
Motel.
Which again is kind of funny that like and the women never find out until like later when she admits it that she's like staying at this other place.
She gets body lice from the bedding.
But like, so that's kind of funny. But then like the girls, the bridesmaids go and do like the Vegas situation.
Yeah, they go to clubs and they have a big limo and all of them are like, oh, no, the bridesmaids always pay for the bride. Like, we're all chipping in. We got this. Like, they go to this really fancy dinner, and Annie's trying to figure out just how much she owes.
Soup and water.
I had soup and ice water. But then all of them are like, oh, it's easy if we all just split it even, blah, blah. And so, like, obviously, that's going to mean she pays more. They each have to spend, like, $125. So you see Annie's being disproportionately, affected by this. And so they have a night out, and they're bopping around to different clubs. And Annie makes up this excuse that she has a bad stomach.
Yep.
And that she needs to go back to the hotel and that she'll meet them at the club. When really she wasn't planning on meeting them. She has no money to go and do that. And then Annie is going through the casino and she sees this group of college guys playing craps and they have her throw the dice and she's on a roll. She's rolling fours every time. She wins them all this money, and then they end up going to different clubs together. And then they give her a cut of their earnings, which is like $800. Yep. Then Annie goes home with one of them, and then the next morning
he gives her a hickey.
Yes, he gives her a hickey, and then he turns out to be this college student, and his girlfriend comes and finds them, and then the girlfriend jumps Annie, like they get in this whole brawl.
She gets like her face gets fucked up.
She gets fucked up, and then she goes and meets the girls for brunch the next day, and she has all this makeup on because she's covering the hickey and the bruises, and she tells them, like, I got in a fight, and they're like, oh my God. And then essentially she pulls Lillian aside at the brunch, and she says, like, the reason I left is because I couldn't afford it. And Lillian's like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? And so then that night we spend another night in Vegas where they go to a strip club and everyone's together and Lillian's there with them. The thing that happens at the strip club I thought was hilarious. Tell the babies what happens at the strip club. They're at like a male review.
And Lillian gets like pulled up on the stage and gets like the lap dance, and then Annie also gets pulled up on the stage, right? And this this stripper has like his junk in her face, and it's like his underwear is like slightly revealing his balls.
One of his balls is hanging out of the
and
G-string.
he like swings, and ball sweat lands in Annie's mouth while she's laughing, and she starts dry heaving, but then immediately starts laughing her ass off with Lillian, which was like I literally needed to take it. I was literally like, I was fucking vomit.
I could just see it so clearly in my mind.
No, it's described so well. And what's interesting about the sequence, though, is like it is a fun sequence.
It's fun, but here's the problem with it. So we end Las Vegas with them all being buddy pals, and Annie is like the hero, and so funny that this ball sweat went in Annie's mouth, and tee hee hee ha ha. But then we go right from there into the whole thing of Annie needing to reach her rock bottom. And it's just Annie deciding, hey, I'm not good at being this maid of honor. Yeah. Helen, you take it on. And then, Lillian says something that, is out of character for her. So I'm going to distance myself.
100%.
It's just her choosing to go in distance. So like that whole Vegas sequence doesn't push the story forward at all because we're not ramping up towards anything. No. In fact, it's copacetic. We get in there, everything's good. They are.
It's a sequence that makes more sense for like Girls Trip because you know what I mean. Whereas like, oh my God, I know we love that movie. We really should do that movie.
Another ensemble movie that
so good. But like that makes more sense for that film. Whereas like this film, we needed to get to a different place with all of these relationships. Predominantly with Annie, we needed to see like it. But the thing that I kept thinking was like. But again, a well-written sequence nonetheless. Like it was funny. It was interesting to kind of, they wrote it so well that like I'm picturing Kristen Wiig with like these college boys and them like loving her and like all these things was fun. It was like they keep saying like, oh yeah, we'll take you to the club. And then they go to like a different stop. And she's like, are we gonna like, you can see it. Yeah. It's so fun. It's whatever. But again, when you realize that was completely removed and like the trivia said, the question was asked, what if they never make it to Vegas? The fact that we got arguably the most quoted scene of the entire film. Yeah.
There's a colonial woman on the wing. She's churning butter. There's something they're not telling us.
When she says this should be open because this is civil rights. This is the 90s.
This is the 90s. No, it's not. Wrong decade.
Like.
What kind of name is stove? What are you, an appliance? No, I'm a man. You're a flight attendant?
It's one of the most iconic comedic scenes
and then you get to see Helen fuck her over. Yeah. Like, I think Helen wanted that to happen. Helen wanted Annie to act out so much. That's why she insists that she drinks the scotch. Because the pills aren't doing what she wants to do. She wants Annie to make a fool of herself. She probably wants her to make a fool of herself so Lillian gets the ick a little bit.
Yeah.
But it just goes south and ultimately ruins things. But it all plays into Helen's favor. Because right after that, we're in the bus. And Lillian, also such a better choice to have Lillian tell Annie.
Yep.
You're not right for this.
It gets you. It gets you to go like, oh my God, imagine your best friend being
actually at the point where like all of Helen's schemes and Annie's, incompetence.
And Lillian's so kind about it too, though. Like, because I was thinking about it and I was like, God, with bachelorettes and bachelor parties, how expensive these things get now too. Like, it's so wild that I'm literally like, I actually had a moment when I was watching this scene where I'm like, can you imagine everyone having bought plane tickets to go to Vegas and then someone loses their mind because they took too much whatever.
So pissed.
And then you have to take a bus back and you didn't even get to experience it, but you had to spend the money, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That like, again, the beauty of the film is it would have been easy for Lillian to lose her freaking mind on Annie, but they still chose to have Lillian be kind of like, you know what? I just think, and it's heartbreaking because she is being so kind of gentle about it, despite the fact that you're like, yeah, no, like thus far, everything Annie's been involved in, despite her best intentions, has not gone well.
Yeah.
And then it kind of makes their mutual blow up so much more satisfying then at the shower, because Lillian, you a little bit do get where Lillian's coming from, where you're like, you get where Annie's coming from hardcore, but you're also like, yeah, from Lillian's perspective, it's like, I've been pretty cool about the fact that
you fucked up every single fucking event.
Yeah. 100%. And even the dynamic of like how Lillian's like, you've managed to make this about you, and yet like the reality of life is that, like, I know for me when I was, pregnant and postpartum, there were disconnects I had with certain friends where it was no one's fault in particular. It was just like, I'm going through this really intense thing, and that does not take away from whatever is going on in your life, but this is like right in front of me. That I just thought that they did a great job at showing like Annie wasn't being like a narcissist. She just was going through a really difficult time while her best friend was arguably supposed to be going through one of the most joyous times of her life. And like, that shit happens.
Yeah.
That shit happens. And again, they were able to deliver it under this comedic thing. But what I love so much about comedy when it's done well is that it actually makes you peek behind the curtain of your thoughts and perspectives and beliefs and go like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, I kind of sympathize with both of them in that situation. Yeah. Whereas like sometimes, often drama can do that for people, but sometimes it is the comedy because it catches you off guard. And then all of a sudden you go like, I didn't think I was going to get a little life perspective here in this moment because I was busy giggling. But this movie does have a lot of those moments that it's like you could just label it heart, and that is kind of what it is. But it's also like real life where you're like, they aren't afraid to go there with some of these things,
Yeah, exploring long-term best friends and like what it means when one person starts going down a different path, where like it's just exploring what the new relationship and the new dynamics is going to be. It's really well done and really fun.
This is so random, but one of the lines that Rhodes says in the movie that I thought was so cute when they're at the bar and he goes, I've been thinking about you a little bit. Something about you sticks. I was like,
it's really cute.
He's
adorable.
He's adorable. First off, we
adorable.
We cannot in any way downplay what he brought to it. Granted, I do think whatever material he had was obviously different than what we read. His character is just a little bit benign in the script.
For sure.
But again, I do think he brought such charm to it. But they had really good chemistry. They had really, really good chemistry where like it was so cute because it's like, again, it could be delivered cheesy. It could be delivered thrown away. But he just did it in a way that actually like I was like laying in bed like, oh, like that's such a cute thing to say. Something about you sticks. Like so cute. And it makes you also, wait, side note, they don't sleep together in the script.
Yeah, they don't.
And it also makes you realize they need to, because it also makes Rhodes, not obsession with her, that's not the word, but Rhodes like deep infatuation with her and like the betrayal he feels by the feelings not being fully returned feels a little unwarranted. Whereas like in the movie, it's not just that they slept together. It's that he also did a nice gesture and she freaks out and acts like he held a gun to her head or something. There's so you understand both sides of it a little bit more. Whereas like in the script, it just feels like he's kind of like a butthurt guy who's like, well, why don't you like me? You know what I mean? And so but I just thought that they fine-tuned them. I think they might have a couple less scenes in the film than in the script, or maybe it just felt that way. But they fine-tuned them so much that every scene in the script between them moved them forward in one way or another. Yeah. Even if it was when they had tension, it was clear that one of the notes that they ran with between them was like making sure you got the most out of every scene they had together.
Yes. Yeah.
Every scene they had together justified the next scene that they had together.
Yeah.
Because if they had not had all these things, because then like even Annie trying to win back his affection hits more in the movie than it does in the script.
Because
it's
part of her arc, and it's really cute because it works that he's a more benign character, because it seems like Annie's the type girl that wants that asshole kind of bravado, and she overlooks Rhodes initially because he's not this hot to trot dude.
Yep.
He's a very regular, nice guy. And so it works really nicely because it's the example of right in front of her face. Here's the best clear cut decision for you for a romantic partnership, and you don't want it because you don't feel like you deserve it, XYZ, all those things that we've already talked about. But it does work nicely that he's kind of not a nothing burger, but a little bit of a nothing burger.
Yeah. 100%.
He's a nothing slider. You know?
I'm vegan, Colin.
Wow. Well,
show some fucking
the slider
respect.
can be made out of impossible meat.
Or beyond.
So a line from earlier in the movie that's that I just love so much, and I love it every time I watch the movie. It cracks my shit up when the mom's like she's an AA sponsor or whatever, and she goes, "You're not supposed to be there. You're not even an alcoholic." And the mom says, "Only because I've never had a drink." Just assuming that you would be an alcoholic if you drink, so you don't go near it. Like, I love.
It's so good.
It's so, and the mom painting the pictures. It's like it has no context for like anything. Doesn't push the story forward at all. It's just a comedic bit.
Yep.
And I remember because we read this script last year. We read the draft that you can find for free online. We read it last year in preparation for this comedic heist film that we wrote. Yeah. That we just solidified Script Babies, and
it's going out some places right now. Vibes.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. But
that's
yeah,
right,
it was.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, we read it for that, and that moment of the mom having this random hobby of painting celebrities, which is so thrown away on the page, but is hilarious in the movie. Yeah. It's just so random. It inspired a thing
for us
that we did in ours that we decided to stick with in ours and just double down on. But like, I love that.
The brilliance too, though, of like in the script, her mom is mainly a cell phone mom, and she's always sending packages, and that gets old quickly. Like
it does.
It's like the first time it's kind of funny because she sends her a relaxation CD, and then it's like screeching sounds.
That woman yelling. I thought that was
so funny because it was the first package. So it was funny. Yes. But then like the constant packages starts to get kind of old. But again, choosing what you do, what you don't do. The fact that they only really show her mom in person, and then that she does move back in with her mom after being like, I'm not going to live with you, mom. And then she has to. But then even like when I was watching it this time, when she goes and hugs her mom, and they use it as like part of her arc where you see, we have all these things that we know to be true about her. We know that she loves cooking. Or baking. She's starting to bake again. Mm-hmm. But again, it's not done in a way that's like Hallmarky or whatever, which again, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean
they don't
like,
emphasize it too much.
Yeah, but it's
even though it's a whole montage about it, it's not like they're shoving it down your throat, you know?
Also, even though my son is only almost 2, when she goes to hug her mom and her mom goes, what's wrong? I was like, if that is not deeply baked into the DNA of a mom, like, what's wrong? And she's like, no, I just like, I love you, whatever. It's so sweet. But again, I was like, it's certainly not monumental. I'm not saying you would have really been like, wow, there was such a void in this film if that had not been in it. But at the same time, it was a really gorgeous addition that like I liked seeing the dynamic she had with her mom. And also her mom saying that whore Barb. And she's like, Mom, they've been married for 12 years. Is so
that whore Barb. And in the script, she like has like she owns like a Chrysler dealership or something. She's like, do you know what she drives? She's like, she's driving around a 2007 PT Cruiser. She wants to look so stupid in that. It's like, it's
so ridiculous. But it was just so smart to put them in person together, have her move back in with their mom. And like you said, the paintings, we never get into it. It's just a gorgeous little extra thing that adds some flavor. And it's not so crazy that you're like, what? It's just enough to be like, that's her hobby. She likes to do that.
I just love it.
I love it. Oh, and the last thing I really loved was the makeup scene between Annie and Lillian is so gorgeous. And again, just all the flowers to both of them as actors, because they both just play it so well where it's like
apartment.
Where you really, it feels like a genuine, like two people being like Lillian's like, no, like I'm sorry too, and they just have such, and it sets up the perfect opportunity for Annie to hold fucking space for Lillian in a way that she's not been able to the whole time. Where she's like, you know what, but it's gonna be okay. Yeah, and she's not. It's like that. It's kind of pivotal, honestly. It
solidifies the arc
100%. And again, it's done under this kind of like whatever comedic thing. But if you really look at it, it's like that is her moment where she's like, no. There's a beat too where it's like Lillian's doing that, and there's a beat, and you see Annie being like, no, I'm gonna be the big sister here, and I'm gonna say whatever. And it's so earned, and it's so beautiful. But when they exchange a look before Lillian gets in the limo to leave, it actually choked me up this time. It's so
really
good.
sweet.
It's not hit you over the head. It's none of that.
I love that choice too, because
I loved that.
It's a little bit of an unexpected choice to
Agreed.
have her not, because she hugs Helen. Well, Helen comes out of the crowd to hug her and like makes a show of it, because that's just Helen. She's just going to be that way.
Yep.
She's a little bit more desperate than Annie in that way. But then, she just catches Annie from the crowd. In the script, it says Annie wasn't able to get forward. But in the movie, we don't even really show that. She's just standing there letting Lillian have her moment. Yep.
And really their exchange glance is so much more meaningful than a hug. Like it's because it's just that like I see you, I know you, I love you look.
And
that like
I don't have to hug you because we're good. Have. Yeah, exactly.
We're good. It's just
I'll be here waiting for you after your honeymoon. Like it's really beautiful.
I really found myself appreciating it that moment in particular so much more than like when I had watched it before. Something about it was so delicious and awesome. And again, not hit you over the head, just like it gave you what you needed. And it made us then move into the Rhodes, and it was cute and it was whatever. And
that ending with Rhodes is really cute.
So cute.
It's very sweet.
It's very movie. But again, all movies are allowed to have movie moments.
Yeah, especially
especially a movie
R-rated
like this
comedy.
But at the same time, like this one felt so satisfying. It really, really did. It didn't take you out at all.
It's very much its own little unique story, and it's just perfection. It's really, really such a great movie.
It's such a good movie.
Evergreen will always hold up, always be funny.
One of the most quoted movies ever as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I still quote that. I mean, everyone I know still quotes that movie.
I'm poor.
Help me, I'm poor.
I've definitely done that one.
What kind of name is Stowe?
Okay, let's do our daddy do's and daddy don'ts. I think I have two. Oh, no.
I have two daddy do, one daddy don't.
Okay, you start.
Okay. I was going to say I kind of had to force myself some daddy do's and daddy don'ts out of me, but that's beside the point. Babies were here. The daddy do's are here. Okay. My first daddy do. Daddy do. Hone your characters completely if you're writing an ensemble piece, especially with comedy. It sharpens the comedy because you can play off of each person's quirks, insecurities, rivalries, etc.
This is you're absolutely right face. Yes, God. An absolute read, darling.
Truly. And daddy do number 2. Daddy do. Pull back. So this is particularly pertaining to the differences between the OG script and the quote unquote final draft that we also read. So that's a very specific context. Daddy do pull back on action and keep it minimal so the comedic dialogue can be the star of the show, specifically for comedies, but this note can also work for dramas too. The final draft of the story did this really well. The original draft we read had a lot more action and it was super well written, but ultimately a story like this needs to let the dialogue shine, and that's exactly what they did.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous girls eat soup.
Those are both gorgine, and I agree. My daddy do, my first one, is let yourself go long in order to cut it down.
Yes, cool.
Because the goal is to land in a place that exists somewhere with what's essential with a little cushion. And as much as one of the thoughts I kept having while reading the script was like, dear God, this needs to be trimmed down, it made me then go, watching the film, go, oh no, but again, thank God there is a version of this that was this long-winded, that did explore scenes longer than they needed to, put everything out there, because again, I really do believe it is so much harder to get to where it went if you aren't allowing yourself first to vomit out as many details that you can conjure up about your characters. Yes. Obviously, some scripts more than others, but arguably that's consistent for everything.
Yeah, especially with the Vegas sequence. Like, had they not written the Vegas sequence to see that it's a bit redundant, with the Hangover coming out, they wouldn't have thought, oh, what's even better is if they don't make it. Like, and then you get that whole iconic sequence probably wouldn't have been.
Well, and it comes back to, too, like, there is no winning an award, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, there is no winning an award for a perfect first draft. It's so stupid. It's between you and the page. And that document, specifically your first draft, is there to let you know what this thing is starting to tell you it is. That it's like, go long. The notes that you get when you are later in a draft, when you're on your third rewrite, your fourth, that is a totally different thing. But those notes do not apply to a first draft. Like, I know this was not a first draft. It did not seem like a first draft. It felt more developed than that. But truly, I really found after watching the movie, like, oh, no, thank God they went so long here. And got to a point where the movie is essential with a little cushion, like George. My next daddy do is give us as many reminders of tone as possible, even if it's just through dialogue. Although there were a lot of edits made from the script to the movie, it still had like goalposts to stay within. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like the script is very different from the film, but tonally, for the most part, with the exception of like some flashbacks that they did, that felt like it broke the mold. And then like they had like actors in it. And so, like, did you remember the Susan Sarandon thing?
Yeah. Oh my God. I loved that.
Where Helen goes even more insane with the bridal shower invitation. It's like what you see in the movie on crack, because then it's like this long thing where you call to like RSVP.
Yeah, she calls the RSVP line, and it's this whole thing of like, press 3 if you want a vegetarian meal. Press 4 if you want a vegan meal. Press 5 if you want like a dairy-free meal. And it's like, there will be no kosher meals. And then it's like, then it ends with this whole thing where it's like, enjoy this
message from Susan
Sarandon. It's like, hi, it's me, Susan Sarandon, the movie star.
Yeah, it's so, and like that and the Christian Bale. So like those were different. But that being said, the tone that you got most consistently through the dialogue is the tone of the film. So I was like, I felt like as much as you can find those, it doesn't always have to be in the action, because like you said, so much of the action was peeled away, but the tone of the film still felt very similar.
And you get that tone right off the bat. Like, we read the dialogue on page 2. It's so heightened and so ridiculous. Like, it's obviously a caricature.
Totally.
Of what people actually do. But people do that. All of us have probably been in that situation when we'd be like, oh, just agreeing with what the person we have a crush on says, even if we actually don't agree with it. Just to seem like the cool, chill person.
I was watching something the other day, and now I'm like forgetting where it was, but they were talking about acting, and people were like, real people act every day, depending on the situation that you're in. And I was like, dear God, that is a read where it was like, like you go to the grocery store and the cashier is like, and then you're acting like a certain way, like that, you know what I mean? That it's like, as much as so much of this is, as much of so much of this is heightened, there are things where you're like, no, like that could happen. You could overhear that. You could be part of that, like whatever.
For sure.
My last daddy do is trust the mother effing process. Some of the scenes that were added after this draft that we read are the scenes that people quote the most. Trust the timing and the process of your story. What comes out first is often not going to be what sticks with people the most. It can be, but do not be afraid to infringe on your genius with refinement. You can always change it back. I have never been a bigger fan of refinement than I am at this stage of my life and career, that I literally was awestruck by going, the fact that the most iconic scenes, the food poisoning, diarrhea, the plane, those two iconic, arguably made the movie what it is scenes were not in the draft that we read.
Nary a shred.
Means you need to use discernment and refinement, but trust the process.
Yes, God.
Those are my daddy do's.
No, those are good daddy do's.
Thank you.
Here's my singular daddy don't. Daddy don't. Skip out on character descriptions. We've given this note before, but it bears repeating, especially when working with an ensemble. I got lost on the page in the early draft we read because there wasn't a lot of distinction between the more tertiary characters, and I kept confusing them on the page, getting a bit lost, and that watered down the comedic impact.
You are so right. You're so right. You're so right. You're so right. You're so right. That is perfectly put. I truly get the ick from a script when I don't get a physical description. And what was frustrating about this one was Helen had one. No one else did.
It's true.
Or damn near no one else did.
Truly.
My daddy don'ts. Daddy don't, number one, do not spell every little thing out or show every single transition. The viewer likes to fill in the gaps, even if they're not correct. They get more invested when every little thing isn't said or shown. What you don't show or say is just as important as what you do say. Like, I noticed in the movie, like literally at one point it was like, Annie realizes that like they're gonna go to Vegas, and then her roommate's like, you don't have the money, 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 and then it's like her being like, I don't have the money, I don't have the money, and it was like
redundant.
the transition that they thought you needed to see when you're like, no, In the movie, it's just like she's on the plane, and you just figure like they figured something out.
In the movie, they have the conversation about like, hey, we all want to go to Vegas, and they're trying to convince Annie to go to Vegas. And Annie, all we do is we see her look at her paycheck. It's $350, and she looks up like, oh shit, and we get it right there.
That's it. That's it.
And also before that, we already know she's broke. Look at her car. Look at her life.
100%.
Like we know she's broke.
Exactly. So it's like you just let your viewer be at least a little smart. You don't have to spell it all out. You don't got to do that. And lastly, just don't get lost in too many B, C, and D plots. While some can be fun, too many distracts from the main plot and focus. One of the biggest differences between this draft and the final was how much they took out, and the movie benefited from it 1,000,000,000%.
Absolutely.
That's all I got.
Well, that's pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I enjoyed.
What a good movie.
Yes.
Oh, what a perfect movie.
Yes, God.
Yes, God.
Mm-hmm. Enjoyed it.
Concludes the Bridesmaids episode.
It does. We did it.
We did it. We did it, Joe.
We did it. Oh, we did do it, Joe. Love you, Script Babies.
Love you.
Thanks for listening.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Script Daddy. Script Daddy is executive produced and hosted by Carly Casey and Colin Moretz, with additional production assistance from the incredible Scott Simmock and our amazing sound mixer, Ryan Fee. Our artwork was done by Josh Alvarado.
If you love Script Daddy as much as we do, please tell your friends. Follow us on your preferred podcast platform and give us a rating and review. It really, really helps. We love you, Script Babies. For all inquiries, please email scriptdaddypodcast@gmail.com.